A space expert with the Massachusetts-based Union of Concerned Scientists told the Daily Beast. Those who know for sure aren't talking. The Russian Space Agency didn't respond to an email seeking comment, and has barely mentioned the mystery craft at all since late 2014. The U.S. Air Force, which tracks all the world's satellites, issued the same boilerplate statement it released the first time the Russian satellites started moving around. U.S. Strategic Command's Space Component tracks Cosmos 2504 and -2499, as well as more than 23,000 man-made, Earth-orbiting objects every day, Captain Nicholas Mercurio, an Air Force spokesman, told the Daily Beast. The original trio of satellites, known by their Russian code names Cosmos 2491, Cosmos 2499 and Cosmos 2504, seemed to be maneuvering toward specific targets in space when they first began their orbital dances. Several times in 2014, 2015, and 2016, the roughly 200-pound satellites moved closer and closer to spent stages of the rockets that had delivered them into orbit, approaching to within a few dozen feet of the old booster shells. That implied that the Cosmos triplets could be inspection satellites capable of closely matching the orbit of another spacecraft and scanning it, or even physically interacting with it in order to repair, modify or dismantle it. The Pentagon calls these rendezvous and proximity operations. Indeed, Anatoly Zak, an independent expert on Russian spacecraft, claimed that the mystery sats might match the dimensions and performance of a known Russian inspection satellite called Yubiliny. The possible wartime applications of inspection satellites are obvious. You can probably equip them with lasers, maybe put some explosives on them, Zak said of the Cosmos triplets in 2015. If one comes very close to some military satellite, it probably can do some harm. To be clear, inspection satellites are not new. The U.S. government operates several of them. But secret inspection satellites are rare and potentially problematic, considering how easily they could be converted into weapons. Moscow took pains to obscure at least one of the Cosmos mystery sats. The Russian Space Agency launched Cosmos 2491 aboard a single rocket that also carried 3 non-maneuvering communications satellites. The Russians announced the comsats in advance. They didn't mention Cosmos 2491 until after foreign and independent space watchers saw Cosmos 2491, which they had initially mistaken for debris, move under its own power. In a brief statement in December 2014, Russian Space Agency Chief Oleg Ostapchenko insisted that the maneuverable spacecraft were peaceful in purpose and not, as some feared, killer satellites. Cosmos 2491 has apparently been inactive since late 2014. Cosmos 2499 executed dramatic maneuvers in the spring of 2016, then fell idle until March 2017. Cosmos 2504 orbited like dead weight for nearly 2 years since performing a close pass on a spent rocket stage in October 2015. Around the same time Cosmos 2499 came back to life, Cosmos 2504 began moving closer to that chunk of old Chinese weather satellite. The periods of idleness are not insignificant, Grego said, while stressing that she had not verified the details of the Russian satellite's recent movements. I do find very interesting that the satellite would go dormant for 2 years and then come back to life to maneuver. That could help the satellite be stealthy. One strategy to keep maneuvering satellites stealthy is to pretend they are debris, that is, not to have them maneuver at all at first, and then come to life.